Welcome back, everyone, viewers. If you're new to the channel, then just follow along. But yeah, we're back. Xander Rooster here, back with technically this is going to be part 2 of The Demon Within. And this will explain the aftermath of what happened to Jeffrey and Jenny in the first part. So if you haven't checked out the first part, I suggest you go and check out the first part. Because then the story would make a lot more sense. So let's just dive it right into it. So the last date was 1961. We were 4th week in January of 1961, and Jeffrey and Jenny had been living in this farmhouse that had no negative backstory or history, but yet there was a demon, but yet there was some demonic, spiritual, paranormal presence within their home, and it ended up with Jenny dying. So yeah, we'll leave it on. Then 20 years. We're 20 years later in 1981. We come, it would start out as a 1981 DMC DeLorean pulls up, goes through gates that look like they belong to a mental asylum, which it is a mental asylum, and the DeLorean goes in and around the cul-de-sac like road and stops right in front of the direct pathway up to the front steps of the asylum. And outside of the passenger side of the car, the gull-wing door opens, and a guy steps out in a long black trench coat, and he has a kind of a classic style black fedora on with feathers coming out of the side that he's attached to this fedora, and we're not given any name or anything about who this guy is, but he carries a black revolver, which is pretty cool, and he carries a switchblade, which is gold. The blade is actually gold. The blade is gold, and the casing is black, like some black bone painted black, it's a pretty cool knife. And he doesn't have a mask on, but he has just a regular suit. So just a regular suit on underneath the trench coat, and he's wearing these dark the special like police officer type shades. Which are also all black. So he has, as he comes up to the front, he's walking from the path, from his car, it is his car, it's just he has hired somebody to drive it. No specific names are given. As he's walking up the pathway up to the front steps of the asylum, he opens his satchel, because that's what he carries all his stuff in, wallet, stuff like that, and he pulls out a cigarette and he lights it up as he walks up the stairs, as he walks up the front steps of the asylum, and he doesn't even have to knock. He stands there for like 3 seconds, and the door's opened by the asylum's butler, by a servant working in the asylum. And he walks in, and straight up to the front desk, he doesn't even have to say anything. He glances, most bland glance ever at the secretary, at the female secretary, and she instantly knows, types in on the little computer, I guess, or the little scrolling through papers and stuff, that he's here to see Jeffrey Holmes. So we know Jeffrey Holmes. Okay, so we know him. So that's a familiar face. But what is he doing in a mental asylum, you ask? Then this would cut to it would cut to a flashback back 20 years prior, after the haunting had happened. Because the truth was then brought about. Jeffrey, if you remember from part 1, he actually, because you know how canned meat kept falling out of the cupboard and the window broke and he heard a rock thump against the wall in the basement, and he could see these like devilish looking children outside, these ghostly looking figures with demon red eyes, and so he gets and so he is obviously horrified, because the part 1 ended with, the haunting ended with, one of the parlor window being broken. Jenny's dead. Yeah, Jenny's dead, and he was really frightened, and there was broken plates everywhere, broken dishes, because they kept hearing knocking, scratching, stuff like that. But then the truth finally is revealed in an interview, that when he was taken in by the police and questioned for all this, because he's reporting all this, and it's an interrogation room with him and an officer, and a priest. So there's that, and he's explaining and they're constantly asking him questions of like, you okay, what happened, da da da. The truth finally comes out that eventually, over 4 years, so 1965, that Jeffrey was actually insane. So the whole time, the haunting was an illusion. The haunting, all the stuff falling and stuff, that actually happened. Because the house was old and falling apart, so the cupboards weren't exactly level. So that's why stuff kept falling. So yeah, that's why stuff kept falling out of the cupboards and stuff. The thing where he illusioned every dish being broken, like it being levitated out of the cupboard and thrown against the wall, was actually, there was a home invasion. It was a home invasion because Jeffrey's father worked for a very shady business, and part of that shady business was a mob, bunch of mobsters, and the mob boss had a daughter, and that daughter was Jenny. And so, why is this mob boss out to get Jeffrey? It was because somehow his father did something. He stole a few cars from him, and he stole like 30 grand somehow. Even though the mobsters weren't even supposed to have that. And so they hunted Jeffrey's father down, and they killed him. And so they got that, and they were to hunt Jeffrey down, but they couldn't find him, because just before his father died, he sent Jeffrey and sent Jeffrey a lot of, like, 100,000 some, and with a disclosed location, and that's where they got this farmhouse. That's why they're living at this farmhouse. Eventually, the mob caught on, and they hunted Jeffrey down. So, in all in all, the rock tied to the rope in the basement, swinging against the wall, that was the illusion. There wasn't actually a rock on a string there, because it was something to tell. It was an old-timey weather watcher. Basically, if I don't know, rock is wet, that means it's raining. Or, well, I guess the inside is the home weathered indicator. And then the one he saw outside was actually out there. He just didn't see it before because it was so pitch black. And that one was the outside weather indicator. And it swinging against the wall and hitting the window. That actually happened because when the mobsters showed up, they grabbed some henchmen and grabbed the rock and smashed it against the window to scare Jeffrey. And the plates being broken was another guy. It was another one of the henchmen just throwing plates on the floor, throwing plates at the floor to once again scare him. And then so all the figures, shadowy figures, and the scratch and stuff he felt, and all the noises he heard, that was all in his head, because Jeffrey was actually, when he was actually 6, diagnosed with some mental disease that he can hear certain things, and his mind will then start to build on that. So probably an very extreme form of anxiety and those kind of mental illnesses. And of course, back 50s, 60s, you would be considered insane if you even had, if you had anxiety or something like that. Even in the 80s and that, too. You would get... So, mainly, Jeffrey was partially insane, so that's why he thought he was being haunted. The second thing was he was actually being hunted, too. And why does Jenny end up dead is because he didn't come out of the house because they were saying, come out now and we'll give you X number of minutes to live before we slaughter you. And so he didn't come out, so they just unload. They didn't know Jenny was in there because the boss only sent a bunch of henchmen, whatever, out, a bunch of goons out to get him, and they just opened fire, and they didn't realize Jenny was in the house, so then she got shot up because they turned the house to Swiss cheese, basically. And so the house technically was then completely abandoned. So, and Jeffrey, technically, in his days and stuff, luckily he didn't get shot somehow. He didn't get shot. But also, all his illusions and stuff of the little demonic, ghostly figure children things out climbing the tree and stuff, that was, yes, an illusion, but built up from something in his past. And same with somebody saying when he felt something grab his ankles when he was sitting on the couch. And, both messages, the one on the wall and one engraved into the fridge door, and the devilish looking shadow figure that he saw when he tried to grab a plate that was levitating out of the plate thing. That was actually somebody grabbing the plates and throwing them, one of the henchmen. And so he tried to grab a plate because he couldn't see the person who was doing it. So that's why he felt something scratch him, but what he saw was something else other than a human. So technically Jeffrey, how this haunting is happening is because Jeffrey technically brought spirits, and these spirits have a demon master, and so he brings all of this with him. He doesn't know it's inside of him because he suffered a lot of childhood trauma, and not only was he diagnosed with the mental illness that he had, but because within his home, his parents technically divorced. His father suffered with alcoholism. His brother he overdosed and died, so he didn't have a brother. His sisters, they left him. They just up and left when their mother died. And eventually his father was killed by the mobsters. And then he went to live with his grandparents sometimes. And both of them, they were nasty. They pushed him around, and when they weren't pushing him around constantly, they just didn't care. You wanted to do something with them? Nope. They were either sleeping or they would just blatantly ignore him. Does he have aunts, uncles, cousins? No, because both of his parents were single children. So, and even when his mother was alive, she eventually did die due to suicide because she couldn't handle certain things in her life, so she took her own. But even when his mother was still alive and was still with his father, she was either there partying, drunk, or high, or just there with another guy other than her husband. And other than that, she was gone 12 hours a day, almost every day. Jeffrey suffered a lot. Not to mention, before his brother OD'd, he was constantly beat on and pushed around and bullied by his older brother a lot, either because his older brother was drunk or high, or just because his brother was just a bad, awful, mean person who didn't really give a crap about anybody or anything other than himself. And even in school, kids made fun of him because when he said, little children are kind of observant a lot of times. So when Jeffrey was little, he'd say, well, I can hear those birds. I can hear these rainbow-tailed birds, and everybody would just laugh at him. And he just wants to be heard. He just wants people to understand that he has an extraordinary gift. And he just wants, even in his self-expression, too, I don't know, one time he wanted to try something new. He wanted to try and draw. But he used his mother's makeup to try and make a picture. It makes no sense why. He didn't get in trouble for it. But his mother wasn't really mad at him. Even though she doesn't really care about him all the time. So, it's just stuff. in the end. And when he's trying to self-express stuff, like there are certain pictures of these shadow creatures that he called them shadow beings, and they were friendly at first. He called them, they had names, they were a family basically. They were his family within himself. And everybody would just laugh at him and say, "Oh, those aren't real." Even the teachers would not just laugh, would make fun of him. They just didn't care. Nobody really cared about him, and it didn't help that kind of sometimes in junior high to middle school, Jeffrey would adopt. He felt like the shadow creatures asked him if they could, asked him from inside within to adopt their personalities, and he's like, "Well, what else do I got to lose? Family hates me. I don't have any friends. I'm alone, except for you guys. So sure." So he takes on several different personalities. So yes, he would technically have personality disorder. But since he was being pushed around, bullied, the whole nine, what else can you do? You're alone within yourself. And so he takes on multiple different personalities. Like one time, he'll be, because he has generally of the 3 of 5, he said, recorded that Jeffrey had 5 shadow people living within him. 2 were the adults, 2 were like the adults, the mother and father, and the other 3, well, one of them was Jeffrey's shadow equivalent, and one of them, Jeffrey didn't have his own shadow equivalent. One of them was his older brother, but he was so nice. He was a lot nicer than the real brother. And then the other 2 were, shadow replicas of his sisters. Just a few years, just a year older than he was. And so when he was in junior high and middle school, he would adopt the personas of his counterpart family members that lived within him. And so one day he would be his brother. He would be his brother, and other days he would be his sisters. Like, even as far as talking like them, dressing like them, doing things that they did, he was made fun of for a lot of times. Yeah, people around him thought he was really screwed up, but what was more screwed up was his actual life. He couldn't help it. He did what he did because what else is a little boy to do when, your father's drunk constantly, your mother's never there, your older brother beats on you and does drugs, your younger sisters just don't give a flying hoot about your existence. You don't have friends. Even the teachers who are supposed to be trustworthy hate you. Basically, they laugh at you. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. And that's not until he met Jenny, he met Jenny in high school when he was in grade 10, and he and Jenny had that instant connection of, bam, it makes sense. They both understand each other. And so through the rest of high school, up into adulthood, up until the haunting, Jeffrey ignored all his mental illness, and he ignored his shadow family. Said he didn't need them anymore. I got Jenny. And so, these shadow people living within his mind and his soul and his heart don't like that. They were awfully positive. Now they're awfully negative. So, yeah, that's how this haunting happened, where basically the shadow figures he saw out there on the tree in the night of the haunting in 1961 were his 3 siblings. The one that would write the messages was technically the counterpart father, and the one or illusioning that it was throwing the dishes was the counterfeit mother. And it's just, and so it came back to bite him in the butt because he ignored such powerful beings. And so fast forward all the way back to up to 1965, where this finally comes out, as he is diagnosed as mentally insane. He can somewhat function, but after the horrors of it catch you, because when he finally married Jenny, he forgot that that ever happened, that he was ever diagnosed with some form of mental illness that was never really treated correctly because his family didn't care to acknowledge him, and two, didn't even care enough to let him see a doctor or a psychiatrist or somebody about it. And so he learned to deal with it on his own. And little children, that's why they need to be taught certain things, so then they later on in life they can deal with it by themselves. So he's technically being hunted by his own demons within and the mob that his father worked for. And then we fast forward back to the present of part 2 here, which is 1981, and this dark figure who gets he's climbing several flights of stairs, and he gets to the fourth floor of the asylum, which there's only 5. So Jeffrey is being held in a cell or a containment room. It's not exactly a cell, but a containment room in the asylum on the 4th floor, which is 23A. And the dark figure knocks on the door, and Jeffrey unlocks and opens it up. Basically, it's Jeffrey's in a state where he can sustain himself. He can cook, clean, bathe himself. He just can't interact with too many people related to his past or that remind him of something. So he can't really be out in society, but he can function himself. So that's basically 23A that's why it's a containment room, not a cell. He is mentally insane, but he's not too far gone. He's not too far gone that he has to be contained in a straitjacket and put in a cell, in a padded cell. No, he's not that far gone. Basically the anxiety acts up his illness, because it's not exactly anxiety. It's probably a lot more, but it only acts up when he's in a situation that's uncomfortable and reminds him of the past. So him being in this apartment containment room thing is pretty good. So he can function normally, talk normally. It's just any signs of the past, he's a train wreck. So anyways, this dark figure walks inside, and Jeffrey offers him a seat and a cold drink, and he says, and the dark figure speaks for the first time in the story, or in part 2 here, for the first time, and says, "So, you're Jeffrey Holmes, and you got some troubles, I hear." And Jeffrey is like, "Yes, I need help, extreme help." And the dark figure replies with, we got some work to do then." And then just next 20 minutes passes, them just sitting there, casual talk, and then it's time to go, and then the dark figure says, "Well, it's time to go." So they both get up, Jeffrey gets ready, they head out. Jeffrey knows that he locks his own apartment because he doesn't want what happened in 1961 to get him again. So he locks the apartment, locks the windows, everything. and him and the dark figure, they walk down the hall to the stairs on the fourth floor and walk all the way down to the main floor. The dark figure signs Jeffrey out because he's technically a patient still. And dark figure and him exit the building. The DeLorean's gone, but then 65 Pontiac GTO in like a bright red with chrome wheels and cool looking demon head hood ornament. It's pretty cool. And so Jeffrey gets in the back, and dark figure gets in the passenger seat, and they drive to where this black figure resides. Basically they go into an office building, like looks like a boarded up warehouse from the 70s, and they go up into it top floor, and Jeffrey, as soon as he walks in, he sees all this equipment plugged in and a chair that looks like a dentist chair, but has a thing that you find, like a hairdryer capsule on top, but it's not a hairdryer capsule. Yeah. So then Jeffrey is technically then told, well, he puts his coat down and he's told to sit in the chair, and his ankles are strapped to, or his ankles are belted to the strap to the chair, same with his wrists, and then the head helmet capsule thing is put on his head and strapped his tied to the chin, and he's like, what does this machine do? And dark figure is, this machine will help you. We will help you solve this problem. And then he flips a switch, all the machinery turns on, and Jeffrey is instantly boom, lights out. So he's unconscious, and then mere 5 seconds later, he's inside his head. Jeffrey is inside his own head. He obviously can't see he's inside the brain, basically. And then the dark figure appears there too. And he's like, whoa, where are we? And dark figure then throws the trench coat, or puts the trench coat, there's a coat hanger and a little shelf, or just a coat hanger. So he takes off the trench coat, and he hangs it on there, and he takes off his fedora, puts it on there, and he takes off his satchel, puts it on there. Then he finally takes the sunglasses off, and he puts them in the coat pocket, and then he takes a cigarette out, and he puts it out on the ground, and he just starts walking with Jeffrey, and Jeffrey's just like, who are you? And then plot twist or ish is the dark figure says, I'm a member of the demon police force, demon hunting officer, so a DHO, and I'm here to help you get rid of these inner shadow people. And Jeffrey's just like blown away, just like, how did you know that? And he's just like, and the shadow figure is, and the DHO is like, because I'm studying you for 2 decades now, It seems that you are mentally insane, physically mentally insane. To you yourself, you don't realize it, but to everyone else around you, they know. You are not bad, you are not less than anybody just because of this. You just have some personal demons that haven't been solved yet and need to be solved. So the DHO says, you Jeffrey Holmes, tell me who are these shadow people? And Jeffrey says, first of all, there's 5 of them, and they reside in my mind, back of my mind, soul, and heart. And DHO says, okay, who are they? And Jeffrey says, well, one of them is there's 2 males and 3 females. One of them is a father sort of figure, and one of them is like an older brother type. And then the 3 females are, one is like a mother type, and the other 2 are both like twin sister types. And then the DHO is like, who are they specifically? And then Jeffrey answers. And then Jeffrey answers with they're supposed to be my mother, my father, my older brother, and my older sisters. And DHO is like, so why do they insist to harm you? And then Jeffrey's just like, because I think I blocked them all out, and I told them I was done with them right when I married Jenny. And then DHO is, and then the DHO is like, yes, that is correctly it. You establish because what the basis here is, you establish these figures when you were down and traumatized, and you couldn't deal with yourself without just freaking out or flipping out or blowing your top. You were rejected by your own family. And thus you had to create create another one, but in your own image. And Jeffrey's just like, yes. Now, we know who they are, what they are, and why they are here. They are within you. So the DHO then begins something like a seance, and he pulls out a pen, which has a glowing light on top of it, and he then calibrates it to red. He calibrates it to have X number of colors, in this case 5, because there are five beings. And he says, Jeffrey, red is your father. Orange is your mother. Blue will be your brother. And then green and yellow are your sisters. And he's like, okay. And so the DHO says, well, ask a question. I suggest you start with, are you guys here? And then Jeffrey kind of repeats, just like, hello? Is anybody or anything here? And then the pen glows all 5 colors. which would then indicate, obviously, that all 5 of them were there. Jeffrey then asks, "Why did you guys attack me?" And then the pen glows red and then orange and then stops. And then DHO is just like, "Well, that's okay. Now we can move up one step. We can then move up one step. We can then move up one step further, and move up one step further and introduce another piece of equipment." So he introduces technically introduces five separate pieces of technology. These are called blinkers, and these will turn on when one or more of the devices will turn on when one or more of the spirits or whatever's in entities, pieces of energy, answers. So if you have to ask specifically, or they will all answer, and it'll be a big mess. So he lays out each of the machines, calibrates all of them, all 5 of them are calibrated, and then he asks, "Father, did you try to attack me?" And then the one that's calibrated for red, blinks, and then turns off. And then he's just like, "Can you hit that thing? Can you hit the device again if hit the device again if it's a yes, or just leave, or once for yes, twice for no." And the thing, and then the thing, it does it, and then the red one calibrated for red blinks once, and he just like, and so Jeffrey asks another question. It's just like, did you want to intentionally harm me? Did you have a plan in mind? One for yes, twice for no. And the thing blinks once. And he's just like, "Okay then, that's settled." And then he asks, like, "Did you, mother, brother, and sisters also were involved in the attack? Did you try to attack me?" Once for yes, twice for no. And so all the other 4 of them blink once. And that's when the DHO asks, "Do you intend to harm us?" And all 5 devices then blink repeatedly. On, off, on, off, on, off. So yes, 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 yes. And then it would go, and then the whole thing goes blank. And it goes blank. And it goes blank, and it just there's nothing but blackness. And that is technically part 2 and the finale for The Demon Within. And I know that's a cliffhanger, but if this story, both videos, reach 10 likes, I will do a 3rd part using the same characters but following a different storyline. So thank you for listening, I guess. Please like and subscribe. And remember, 10 likes on each video on both part 1 and 2. And that'll be a total of 20 likes. And I will make a third part using Jeffrey, DHO, and most of the characters in following a different storyline of different characters, but using familiar things related to the Demon Within. So, thank you for listening, and like, comment, subscribe. Thank you.